peeps. You're listening to She's My Cherry Pie, the baking podcast from the Cherry Bombe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jessie Sheehan. I'm a baker, recipe developer, and author of 4 baking books, including Snackable Bakes. In each episode, I hang out with some of the sweetest bakers around and take a deep dive into their signature bakes. My guest today is Mariam Daud. Mariam is a home cook and author of the new book, I Sleep in My Kitchen, Comfort Recipes from My Palestinian American Home, out soon. Mariam is known on social media for her inspiring recipe videos, which highlight traditional Palestinian baked goods and comfort food. Her work is beautiful, and her 7+ million followers across Instagram and TikTok agree. Mariam joins me to talk about her childhood spent baking and cooking with her mom and her sisters, including the assembly lines her mom set up to get through large baking projects, the time she burnt her mother's kitchen making French fries, why she started making videos on social media, spoiler alert, the first video featured a milkshake, and all about her cookbook. Then, Mariam walks me through her recipe for Knafeh Kishna, the popular Arab dessert that's both sweet and savory. Shredded phyllo dough is pressed into a pan, covered with a sweet cheese filling, baked until golden, and then flipped over post-bake, so the cheese is on the bottom. It is then soaked in an orange blossom syrup and garnished with pistachios. Mariam and I talk about the differences between Palestinian and Lebanese knafeh, the various kinds of cheese the recipe calls for, and the amazing cheese pull you'll enjoy when it is served hot. I loved chatting with Mariam, so stay tuned for our convo. You can find today's recipe at cherrybombe.substack.com. Cherry Bombe's new issue is here. It's called Mom's the Bombe and has 3 amazing covers featuring these dynamic mother-daughter duos. Chloe Crane LaRue and her mom Trudy, who are the co-authors of the cookbook, The Artful Way to Plant-Based Cooking. Sama Dada and her mom Shermeen. Sama is the founder of Dada Eats and a cookbook author. And food stylist and entertaining expert Romilly Newman and her mom Antonia, a casting director, screenwriter, and filmmaker. Chloe, Sama, and Romilly all share a deep bond with their moms who have influenced their culinary styles and careers. Don't miss their cover stories with original photography by Jennifer Livingston. This issue is also packed with delicious recipes, beautiful photos, and heartfelt essays. Head over to cherrybombe.com to subscribe now to guarantee your copy, or pick up a copy at your favorite local bookstore or culinary shop. Let's chat with today's guest. Mariam, so excited to have you on She's My Cherry Pie and to chat Knafeh Kishna with you and so much more.
I'm so excited and ready to dive in with you.
Yay! Will you start us off by sharing an early baking memory or baked good eating memory from childhood?
If I'm being honest, there's so many. My entire childhood was being in the kitchen with my mom. All of my early memories are of that. A very, very common one was me and my sisters. Something I love saying is that I consider it kind of like a factory line, because a lot of the traditional recipes like grape leaves, the kibbeh recipe in the book, it involves a lot of time, and it's nice to have that helpful hand. So my mom would always put us on the counter together, and we'd just sit there doing it for hours with each other, especially with grape leaves. My mom loved, for some reason, doing 6 jars at a time. My limit for my personal self is about 2 jars at max. That alone takes me 5 hours.
And tell us how many grape leaves are in the jar. I learned this from reading your book, but it's a lot.
Yeah, I believe 60 to 70, if I remember each jar. So my mom was very, very specific about how they were rolled growing up.
Yeah.
So if they weren't rolled correctly, she would take it from us and show us again how she wanted them to look, especially if we had guests coming over.
Yep.
So that kind of stuck with me too. So when I'm rolling it, I'm looking at how perfectly well they're rolled and make sure that the ends are tucked in, and it's definitely a process. But one of my favorite memories growing up is just sitting with my sisters and rolling them and sitting and talking, and we kind of use that as family time.
What about a baked good eating memory, maybe that wasn't even, at home, maybe at a restaurant or going somewhere with your sisters or your mom, or it could be something at home, something that you maybe weren't necessarily making, but you loved eating?
So we used to do these little gatherings with the women in our community when I was younger. And I remember this one time, I didn't grow up with banana bread, for example. My mom, I don't believe she ever made it. She was more so into pound cakes and Arab desserts, but a lady brought over banana bread and it had the walnuts and the chocolate chips, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And that was like my first introduction to banana bread. And that day forward, I would always make it at home, and it became like one of my favorites. Still to this day is one of my favorites.
I love that. Do you remember how old you were?
I would say maybe 12 or 13.
I love that.
I'd say, yeah.
And then where would you have gotten the recipe from? Like, did your mom have cookbooks around, or would you have looked on the internet?
My mom was the queen of cookbooks. We had this huge gray tub. I don't even necessarily like the ones that you keep in your garage to keep, but thousands of cookbooks this woman had and still has. And I would look through them. I don't necessarily remember where I got the banana bread recipe from. I can't remember if I asked the woman for the recipe or not. I definitely found myself more intrigued to look through my mom's cookbooks after like tapping into.
She had a mixture of sort of Arab, Middle Eastern cookbooks as well as American. Like she sort of loved it. She was an equal opportunity cookbook lover.
She loved anything that she could teach herself how to make. She was in it. I had a nice section, I would say, of like the Arab, Middle Eastern recipes. And then we also had like Martha Stewart and Ina Garten. And we had anything cooking wise she loved. And I definitely got that from her. She also just loved like Food Network, for example. So I grew up with everybody.
I love that. I love that. I love the mix. This was something that I read about in the book that, because I love Cool Whip, it really spoke to me. I think your older sister used to like to make crepes with Cool Whip, which sounded so good to me. I know that says something about the kinds of things that I like or my palate. But I understand that she was good at baking and cooking, but she wasn't passionate like you.
Yeah, she would tell me the same thing to this day, actually. We talk about it a lot. She was great. She was, an ideal daughter. Doesn't love to cook, doesn't love to bake, but good at it.
Yeah.
Anything she would make would be delicious. We would just so the crepe situation was one day she decided to make us crepes, and she put the Cool Whip and the bananas and the strawberries and, some type of chocolate spread on the side, all of the good stuff that any kid would absolutely adore. It wasn't like a common occurrence to see her like chefing it up all the time. Whenever she would make crepes, like after that one day, she saw how much, I'm assuming she saw how much we loved it. So it kind of became a little ritual whenever we knew like, okay, she doesn't have anything going on during the weekend, she's going to make us crepes. It became like, oh my God, I'm so excited. But Cool Whip was definitely a family. It didn't last longer than a day in my house, unfortunately. Yeah. Everybody would take a spoon and eat it like a snack. But the Cool Whip was a great addition.
Can I just tell you this? It's not often in my house, but if I had Cool Whip in my freezer, taking a spoonful of that, so good.
Exactly. That's why it never lasted in our house.
Exactly. So you have 9 siblings, and you refer to your mom, who is an excellent baker and cook, as we've established, as the head chef, which I thought was so cute. And I read that when you were little, and maybe it's still true today, that if she was in the kitchen baking, you wanted to be by her side. Can you tell us about making pita with her when you were 15?
I grew the love for being in the kitchen with her as I got a little older. When I was younger, it was like, oh, Mom wants me to do another thing.
Yeah.
15 years old, I definitely locked in. I was like, I really enjoy this. I specifically remember that was the first time I ever made pita bread. My mom probably plenty of times before that. I just specifically remember I wanted the measurements, and I wanted to know how to make it. And I would just see her throwing things into this huge bowl that every Middle Eastern mom has in her kitchen. And I would ask her, like, oh, how much of this? Like, how much water are you putting in? She was like, oh, just add a little bit at a time until you like how it feels. I think it was my first time realizing, like, how to understand, for example, dough, how it's meant to feel in your hand. And it's more so less measurements, and especially coming from an ethnic mom, more so about, like, the love that you're putting into it. So that captured my attention a ton and definitely added itself into my routine of how I make certain things. But of course, with the cookbook, I learned how to really touch on the measurements for everybody at home.
There was obviously you were doing a lot of like sort of assisting of your mom and watching her. I loved reading this in your new book. You said that like you could have written a whole book about like savory baking or desserts. Like that's definitely a passion of yours. Were you doing any baking? Like, was there ever a moment, I don't know if she would have let you in, but would there ever be a moment when your mom wasn't in the kitchen and you would be in there sort of practicing or just wanting to bake things because you were getting sort of after that pita moment maybe, getting more excited about baking?
Definitely. I was in the kitchen, I would say as early on as 7. Maybe I didn't love it as much back then, but I can even remember like the first thing I ever truly tried to bake by myself was as simple as like, I believe peanut butter cookies or something along those lines. And then I got to, I believe, 8th grade, and I was in home ec, and we had the assignment of going home and making a meal for your family. That was the first time I made like an actual huge meal, feeding my entire family, which was like a big thing. I was really excited. I believe I made like homemade California rolls and plethora of different things. But I remember it took me all day, and I just saw everything on the table, and I felt ecstatic that everybody got to eat it. Definitely around, I would say, around the age of 10, 11 is when I started getting in there alone, and she would let me deal with the oven myself, myself and stop worrying about me as much. I remember just making like cookies a lot. I feel like that's where everybody starts, but I made a bunch of different types of cookies. Kind of went from there.
Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. Peeps, did you hear the news? Jubilee New York 2026 is happening on Saturday, April 25th at the Glass House in Manhattan, and tickets are on sale now. Jubilee is Cherry Bomb's annual conference celebrating women and creatives in the world of food and drink. It'll be a beautiful day of connection and community, plus delicious bites and sips. You'll meet other thoughtful food folks and be inspired by the featured speakers, panelists, and more. I had such a great time at last year's event, and I know this year's will somehow be bigger and better. Tickets are on sale now at cherrybomb.com. If you're an official Bomb Squad member or a paid Substack subscriber, be sure to use your discount code at checkout. You can find it in your inbox or on our Substack website. Head to cherrybomb.com for all the details. I hope to see you there. Now back to our guest. I know there was one solo cooking project that did not go so well when you were 17 and you were making French fries for your brother. And I don't know if you know this, but Dory Greenspan, who's been a guest a few times on the podcast, she also has a burn down the kitchen French fry story. So I love that you and Dory are connected that way. Can you tell us what happened that day?
I was around 17. My older brother asked me to make French fries and a burger, which I said yes to. And I had the French fries going, and all I remember is that my other older brother came home and he said, "Everybody come outside. I have a new car I want to show you." And so everybody left the house excited to see this new car. And all I see is my younger sister come out through the front door, and she's screaming, "Guys, fire, Mama!" And I heard Mama, and I freaked out because I was like, "What, Mama? Fire what?" So I went inside, and my mom had a huge thing of baking soda and just flinging it everywhere. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, what did I do? My confidence in cooking that day was completely obliterated. And I remember my dad walked in, and I just, like, my eyes got big. I was like, oh no, he's going to see. And he just walked straight through the kitchen to the backyard. I can't remember if it was me or one of my siblings, but they were like, "Did you see the kitchen?" He was like, "What's wrong?" And he walked back into the kitchen. He was like, "Oh, things happen." So I felt a bit better about myself after that.
Tell us about your family's restaurant in Cleveland, the Pyramid.
I don't have too much memories from, because I believe they sold it when I was 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Or 6, around that time frame.
Yeah.
So I don't have too many of my memories surrounding the Pyramid. We do have a ton of pictures, and that was a good chunk of their life, maybe around a decade, if I remember correctly. So it was their first major, my mom and my dad working together, cooking every meal together, hustling through this exciting but tiresome restaurant. And I love just hearing them talk about it. My dad has a few, if I can find them, articles written about him. I believe it was The Plain Dealer. It's a big, in Ohio. It was just really something I was always so excited to hear more about. And I'm always fascinated by the restaurant industry in general, and just knowing my parents are such strong workers, and they did all of that with having, I can't remember if my brother was born right before my brother was born. So my mom was pregnant during all of this. So 9 kids and pregnant, and she was really hustling, and just knowing how much hard work they put into everything they do. I'm fond of some of the memories that I'm grateful to have of it, and knowing that it kind of pioneered my way of thinking about food.
Was your dad cooking as well? Or was just your mom in the kitchen and he was hospitality, or kind of both?
Both. My mom and my dad are like a cooking power duo.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I love that. So obviously baking and cooking a lot, up till 17 with the French fries and beyond. When did you start sort of baking and cooking and putting what you were making onto the internet, like onto Instagram and TikTok?
I would consider that to be kind of a funny story, I would say. In 2019-ish, I started a cake business, a small one.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything crazy.
How old were you then?
I believe I was 19 when I, initially started it.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any agenda with social media. I was kind of just posting for fun, as any 19-year-old was doing. And I would record my little clips of my cakes and post them. And my sister was really into TikTok at the time. And I thought, oh, that seems a little cringe. You should delete it. And then I ended up downloading it. And I posted like a cake video on there. Nothing crazy happened. I was just posting for fun. And then COVID happened and my family was all home together. My brother asked for a milkshake. I said, okay, I'll make you a milkshake. And he was like, we should record it for TikTok, make a fun video. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And then it was a very, very, very silly video. No aesthetics behind it. I did not know how to record at all. Didn't know what I was doing. And I ended up just recording it, putting a very silly sound over it, and then posting it onto TikTok, not expecting anything. And a couple hours later, it had like 6,000 likes already, when I was like, oh my God, because that, to anybody, especially back then, was quite a bit of likes. And I remember showing my brother, like, look, and he started making jokes like, I'm making you famous. It was just like a silly thing. And then I woke up the next day and looked at my phone. I think it had like either 1 million views or 1 million likes at the time. I don't recall specifically. And that kind of established my eagerness to post recipes. I was getting a lot of comments saying, oh, you should post more recipes. In my head, I was like, a milkshake, it's kind of 3 ingredients. What's enticing about that? And the next day, I think I posted like hamburger buns or something, and it did really well again. And people were just really excited about the recipes. And it was really exciting to see, because it's something I love doing and something I was brought up on. So I just kind of went with the momentum of it and kept posting. And that's how it happened. I didn't do it intentionally. It was more so a fun coincidence, and I just kind of took advantage of the moment.
That's such a great story. Were you posting to TikTok and Instagram when you did the milkshake, or were you just like, oh, I like TikTok, this is fun?
Yeah, it was more so just a fun, like, quick TikTok post. I don't think I've ever posted it on Instagram. I think it was, at that point, just TikTok. And I think maybe the week after, when I started posting, like, actual food is when I started slowly posting those recipes on
to both places. Today, do you post the same things to both platforms, or do you modify things for Instagram, or vice versa?
Instagram, I post slightly different sometimes. If it's a pure recipe video, I post on both platforms.
Yep.
Instagram, I enjoy because you can be a little bit more personable. Even though TikTok now does the photos as well, I feel like Instagram is a bit more of a comfortable space to post like carousel photos and update your story, and people are engaging with it. And it's a bit more fun for people that genuinely love your content, keeping up with you.
Yeah.
So I usually stick to posting the recipes on both platforms, and then Instagram I can get a little deeper into.
Is TikTok like your first love? I mean, you have, like, just because that's sort of where it began, and you have such a amazing and really engaged audience there. Yeah. Over like 7 million followers.
It's exciting. I feel as though I don't necessarily view the followers. I view the support, and I love the support, and I appreciate everybody that follows me and encourages me to continue working my dream, essentially. Do you still look at it as if it's my job and I want to give people what they want and create these wonderful recipes for them? And TikTok is definitely close to my heart. Mm. I think now I kind of view it as I really want people to enjoy cooking as much as me. So I want to give them these recipes that work well, and I never want anybody to ever feel as though they wasted ingredients on a recipe that didn't work. So it kind of turned into a love of wanting people to know that they can cook well and know that it doesn't have to be perfect right away, but you can get there. And I want to be a place of encouragement for that. So I guess my love for TikTok stems from that feeling of getting into cooking and wanting to place that emotion into other people's hearts. I don't necessarily view it as a love because it's my first platform, but more so because it gave me the encouragement and confidence to share what I love with other people.
That makes sense. And when you're posting, I think now TikTok might be a little bit different in terms of links to recipes, etc. But in general, when you post there, do you try to put the recipe into the caption so that people have it, or are you directing people elsewhere to find the recipe?
I'm definitely a lover of putting the recipe in the caption. Yep. Nowadays, I don't necessarily put the instructions just because it's a very long caption at that point. So I direct them to my website after I list the ingredients so that at least they know what it includes. And if they want to just follow the video and, go from there, they can. My website, I'm grateful for it just because I'm able to get a little bit into the details and the nitty-gritty and really hone in onto people that don't want any mistakes happen recipe, and hopefully that helps them a bit. But I always encourage putting the recipe in the actual caption because people love it, and sometimes they don't want to go from platform to platform.
I agree. Yep, yeah. Totally. How would you say, obviously you got better at doing it, but how did your style evolve? Like, did you have to teach yourself how to make videos? Did it just sort of, the more you did, it came naturally and you developed a technique that worked for you?
I would say it definitely came naturally after trial and error, as anything that you do. I always loved creating, and I kind of took that element of myself and put it into recording and how can I better myself and really tap into the creative element of editing and the quality and wanting people to feel immersed into the recipe. And a goal of mine is to make it always feel easy. If it's not necessarily the easiest recipe, I want it to feel smooth and encouraging whenever they watch the video. So I try to just implement all of those elements into recording a nice, smooth, well-lit, well-imaged video. As I kept continuing, trying to better myself, I feel like it has come to a nice, what's best to say it? Like, a nice era of my content.
Yes, totally. Do you ever think about putting yourself in the content, or you really like it to just be about the food?
I think about this often.
Yeah.
I would say I really love that with keeping it just to food. It's really just honing in onto my craft, and people think less of anything other than just like what you truly enjoy and what I'm working on and the recipes that I put out. I just truly love and enjoy the fact that I'm able to work on and put out essentially just like my dream job.
Yeah.
Being able to just share these recipes and have that be essentially the one thing that people do follow me for. Or now, of course, like whether it is to be excited about learning more about a new culture and their cuisine, but I do just really love the idea that people are here for the food and they love to watch me cook, which is an exciting piece of how social media can be truly a job that you love, and so exciting that people can be there for that and watch it unfold instead of feeling like you have to immerse yourself completely and lose yourself into social media, if that makes sense.
So did the book project come out of social? Like, were you approached, or was it something that you knew you wanted to do and you sort of pursued it? How did the book come to be?
I believe it was through my agent, Nicole. I met her first, and then through her, we kind of set up forgive me, Nicole, if you're hearing this, but I don't know necessarily the process, but she set up a few meetings of publishers that were interested in wanting to publish the book. And it kind of went from there, where I had all of these meetings with different publishers after, of course, writing the proposal and getting that out there as well. And so all of these publishers read the proposal. I'm assuming they loved it and they wanted to have meetings with me. And I believe it was around 7 that I had meetings with, which was really exciting. I was taken aback by how many people were really interested in it.
Yeah.
Especially because this was 2022 when I was having these meetings. Mm-hmm. So Palestine wasn't necessarily a top country anybody really knew much about. So it was really exciting to know people were interested in it.
Yeah.
And then from there, we kind of had like this narrowing down of like my top favorites. And then I believe they had a
auction.
Yes, they had an auction. Yeah. And that took me back even more. Yeah. I was like, what do you mean? And having an auction over who can publish my book? And it was just a really exciting time. And that's kind of how it started. And I was able to, go forward with who I thought was going to be most fitting to work with for the next 2.5, 3 years.
Yep.
And yeah, it was a wonderful time.
So the book is called I Sleep in My Kitchen. I love the name, and I love the kind of the story behind the name, which I can sort of relate to. I'm not sure I get up and make something in the middle of the night, but I lie in bed just imagining, why didn't that work? How can I tweak it so it's going to be better? Can't wait to wake up and do it. But tell us about the name for you.
Yes. I Sleep in My Kitchen. I've had it in my Instagram and TikTok bio since 2020, since I started social media. So it was just always like a funny catchphrase that I thought would fit my content well. I think for the book, it really resonated with me to hopefully be the title, which I'm grateful everybody agreed, because it made even more sense as I was testing the recipes and spending all this time really trying to make everything, work wonderfully and perfect the measurements and everything. I found myself laying down at night trying to go to bed and thinking, oh my God, like it didn't work. This recipe didn't work today. I really want to like nail it down. I would get up at like 12 a.m. and, you know, try to redo it or try to at least reimagine the recipe. It's always on my mind. I'm always in the kitchen. It's my favorite place. I truly just love everything down to like organizing my kitchen, making sure everything is, you know, makes the most sense for if I'm making eggs. Make sure the spatula is right next to me. Like everything about the kitchen, I'm obsessed with, down to just making sure everything's in the right place. And especially cooking and just hosting friends, everything in a kitchen can kind of hold to somebody is what it means to me. So basically, I did feel like I just slept in my kitchen in a sense where I'm always in there.
Yeah,
so,
I love. Tell me about working with your co-writer. Was that a good experience? Emily Timberlake?
Yes, Emily is incredible.
Aww.
I love her so much. She was so pleasant to talk to. We had meetings every week. She was just like a breath of fresh air. I think it was nice for me to also, being a creator and also testing recipes every day, and you're stuck in your home, depending on where you're testing said recipes, it can be a little bit restrictive, and sometimes you just want to either leave your house or talk to new people and fresh voices. So it was nice to have her implemented into the routine and get to know her. And the more I got to know her, the more I just loved her personality. Also, as my co-writer as well, she was wonderful. There's so many good things I can say about her.
That's
honestly.
great. Tell us about the recipes. I know like 20% are sort of fan favorites, and then 80% are brand new recipes. Tell us what we see when we open up the book in terms of the recipe variation and variety.
I would say the variety of the cookbook is basically what I grew up eating. My mom, again, loved making so many different things. It wasn't that she stuck to one genre. She loved challenging herself and making fun recipes. So the book is kind of similar to that, to where I put a lot of the recipes I grew up with. So you're going to see regular buttermilk pancakes because it's a staple. Of course, all of us grew up with that, I feel. But you're also going to see, let's say, the Knafeh-inspired French toast that I also have in the breakfast section. So it's kind of inspiration behind the recipes lies in my Palestinian roots, and then also living here and being surrounded by so many other beautiful cultures. Like in the dessert section, I have a chocolate flan, and I love Mexican cuisine, so I knew I had to implement one of those recipes into my book. And yeah, I think it's just a beautiful curation of what America is and how many beautiful cultures there are, and how we all love different cuisines, and we're out at this restaurant every other day, and it's just fun. I feel that I really got to immerse my love for everyone, almost in a sense, into this book. So a nice curation of everything that I love.
I love that. I think you say like about growing up in a melting pot.
Yes,
which is exactly. America, and you fell in love with the foods from other cultures, and so those needed to be just like, and that's how you were raised, because your mother did that as well. And so, exactly. You know, it's all part of your childhood, really, and your family covers so many different cuisines. I love it. I love it. Can you tell us, is there a sort of a gateway recipe to the book, like a recipe you would say, okay, start with this one? I mean, it could be pancakes, but whatever you think somebody should start with when they like first open the book.
Ooh. I would say maybe one of the tart that's in the breakfast and brunch section, or one of the galettes. Mm-hmm. I feel like they're easy enough to not be too intimidated by it, but also elevated to where once you're done making it, you're going to be extremely proud of yourself. And they're also very flavorful recipes as well. So it's like huge confident boost, I would say. Yeah. I made the tomato galette a couple days ago, and I still got really excited when it was done. Flavors are just everything to me, and it was just like, it's so beautiful when it comes out of the oven. So I feel like people would really, really just adore making those recipes and just being really happy and proud of themselves once they're done with it.
I love it. What about a recipe which would be sort of more like a project, either a project bake or just like a project, it would just require a little more of you for you to push yourself a bit?
Oh, maybe one of the dough recipes. Of course, I feel like a lot of people are intimidated by bread. I personally love the Japanese milk bread in the book. It's amazing for sandwiches, amazing for toast. It's a delicious bread on its own, but it's, of course, a process, and it's fun to learn and fun to immerse yourself into the recipe itself. And to me personally, I feel like it's one of those more enjoyable bakes too, especially after it's baked, you get to see all the rolls kind of beautifully flaky together. And I would say that one is a project one, but still fun and still, you know, encouraging to entering into the bread world.
Love it. All right, now we're going to talk about the recipe. We're going to talk about Knafeh Kishna, or sweet cheese pie. Is that sort of like what one might call it if one was kind of trying to describe it?
I would say, yeah. I feel like that's the perfect description of what it is. Yeah.
So it's a pie with sort of a crunchy, flaky crust that's topped with melted cheese and a sweet sugar syrup, popular in the Levant. Tell us about this incredible dessert. I know you say it's like a classic dessert in the Arab world with many, many countries having their own sort of regional version.
Yeah. I have the Knafeh Kishna in the book, so it's more of a shredded phyllo dough on top compared. There's also a Knafeh nama, which is a finer dough, which you can make completely homemade. You can also make the Knafeh Kishna homemade, but it's going to be a bit more tedious. The Knafeh nama is very fine, very soft. Some people compare it to almost a doughy bread texture on top. There's conflicting opinions about how people feel about each, but mine personally is inspired by Knafeh Nabulsi, so it's a Palestinian, more so inspired Knafeh. Like, for example, Lebanese Knafeh, you're not going to see much or any dye at all, really, in their Knafeh. There's a few slight changes. The Palestinian Knafeh, you're going to, one, notice it because it has a little bit of a orange tinge to it, a nice orange tint. Because of the food coloring, it kind of gives it that traditional look. The Knafeh from Nablus is a historic recipe, I would say, in Nablus in specific. They also are really fond of using Nabulsi cheese, which is a white brine cheese specific to Nablus, Palestine. In the book itself, the recipe, I call for a kawi because it's a little bit easier to find. Nabulsi, of course, unless you're next to a wonderfully curated Arab Middle Eastern market, it's going to be a bit hard to find. This recipe in the book was everything to me because every Palestinian needs the recipe for one. Again, it's one of those recipes that don't have many measurements when it comes from your mother or your grandmother. So I really wanted it to excite the younger Palestinian readers and also people that just love. I know there's so many people that love it in general, so I wanted them to have a nice recipe to be able to follow and make it at home. So I just felt like it was a really important staple to have in the book. It's, loved dessert by so many of us, and it's also one of my absolute favorites. So it was like a no-brainer.
When you mentioned like the briny cheese, should I picture something almost like a feta, like briny in that way?
I wouldn't necessarily compare it to feta. It's more firm, I would say. Less crumbly, still able to like break it apart and, get it.
Yep.
A part of me kind of wants to compare it to mozzarella in a sense, but has a bit more of that. I don't want to say salty flavor, but it has
like a tang.
A nice tang.
That's why I thought of feta, because I was thinking brine, and I was thinking like almost I can taste it like on the back of my throat. It gives me slight savory vibes just because of the cheese, but it's always served as dessert, right? Because of that sugar syrup. Yeah.
That's why I feel like some people might be a little intimidated to try it at first because you hear a dough and cheese, you're not thinking dessert right away.
Yeah.
But the contrast is honestly so delicious, especially when it's drenched in that beautiful syrup on top. It's incredible once you're able to.
It sounds so good to me. When would you eat it? Is it the kind of thing that your mom would have made a lot? Is it a special occasion thing?
Some people treat it as a special occasion thing when they have guests over. It's kind of that dessert that you serve at the end of the night. My mom honestly made it quite often. I wasn't deprived of it. I had it really often when I was younger. I think that's why I love it so much. It's just a fond memory as well.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on the family. If their mom loved cooking and it was just kind of always out there, or if it was something they saved for guests and family gatherings and stuff like that.
Yeah. So as you said, Palestinian knafeh will often have red or orange food coloring in the dough, whereas the Lebanese knafeh will look sort of like a pale gold dough. I thought that was so interesting. You tell us that we can buy the knafeh dough, which is often labeled as katefi dough.
Yeah.
And it's basically thin strands of wheat flour and water, almost like, for somebody who doesn't know, to visualize maybe something like shredded wheat or vermicelli, sort of like that kind of almost texture and the look. And you say that we can buy it frozen at Arab grocery stores, kind of like a shredded phyllo pastry situation.
Mm-hmm. I feel like vermicelli is honestly a great way for someone to picture it if they've never seen it before.
Yeah.
I would say your best bet is finding it at an Arab grocery store, Middle Eastern grocery store. I have been seeing it, though, recently in some local grocery stores in general, like American grocery stores, which is exciting. So if you just keep your eye out on the freezer section, sometimes, it might be a little of an exciting grocery trip.
Yeah. We'll get into all the details of this, but basically we're like packing those crumbs into the pan. We're layering cheese on top. You tell us that it's traditionally would be cooked over an open flame, rotated frequently until the cheese melted. we're doing it in an oven, obviously. Easier, more hands-off. Your mom would have done it in the oven, right? Or would you guys have gone outside? Yeah, she would have done it in the oven.
Yeah. My mom did it in the oven. My dad was the one that usually, of course, the flame on the stove isn't necessarily what you're looking for, but my dad would kind of rotate it on
try and do it. Oh, I love that.
I love that. Originally, but my mom was simple and loved the oven.
Yeah. And then at the end, you're going to flip it onto a tray and drizzle with this orange blossom syrup, which you happen to have in bulk, but we're going to go through the recipe for those that don't. So first things first, we're going to cut the frozen Knafeh dough into large chunks just so it fits into our food processor. We're going to process and pulse until it's ground into about like quarter to half inch long, like vermicelli threads. And then in a large bowl, we're going to combine salted butter, some ghee, some orange or red food coloring. Do you have like a special kind of food coloring? Do you have a particular brand you like of food coloring?
You're going to find it at pretty much every Middle Eastern specialty grocery store out there, but there's a powdered Knafeh food it's just regular coloring, but powdered form. And they already have it there for you just to pick it up and you're ready to go.
Perfect. But we can also use liquid food coloring?
Yeah, whatever gives you the nice color.
Yeah. And we're going to mix that together with our hands. We're going to add that shredded dough that we just processed, massage between the palms of our hands until the dough is fully coated in the butter mixture. We'll heat our oven to 350 in a 9 by 13 inch baking pan. And I was just going to ask, do you have like a brand of pans that you love?
The one that I actually use a specific one for whenever I make my Knafeh at home because I just love the way it looks when it comes out of it. I do use the Caraway, I believe is the brand, the 9 by 13 baking dish.
Yep.
Because it always pops out perfectly. I never have to worry about it sticking, and the shape is ideal for what I prefer. So it's something I love. Yeah.
So in a 9 by 13 inch baking pan, we'll pack down the dough mixture with our hands into an even layer, and we'll like kind of push it a little bit up the side. So it's almost like we're making a tiny bit of like a vessel that we're going to be putting our cheese into. Then we're going to use a flat bottom cup, kind of like a 1 cup measuring cup.
Yeah, anything with flat bottom will do,
To press almost like you're making like a graham cracker crust or something, to press the dough firmly down into the bottom of the pan. And we didn't grease the pan or anything, right?
Yeah, no. Yeah,
because it has so much butter in it anyway and ghee in it.
Yeah.
So we'll press down firmly to ensure that it's going to hold its shape when we flip it out later. And we just put the pan into the oven for like 5 minutes to just help set it up a little bit before we add everything else. Then we'll remove the pan from the oven and we'll dollop ricotta cheese evenly over the surface of the dough, and we'll use our fingertips to sort of gently spread the ricotta into an even layer. But we want to be really careful because the dough is super tender.
Yeah.
Then we'll sprinkle mozzarella or akawi cheese. You describe it, I think, as like a sweet cheese.
Yeah, it's very similar. I would say the most similar to Nabulsi, but you do have to, more often than not, soak it overnight in some cold water to kind of draw out that saltiness because you, of course, don't want your dessert to be on the salty side.
Yep.
I feel like it's more accessible, so that's why I put it in there.
Yeah, I love that. So we were going to sprinkle mozzarella and akawi cheese over the ricotta. And you say it's the sweet cheese, if we're purchasing it, you say it's important that it's unsalted, 16-ounce vacuum-sealed package, refrigerated section of an Arab grocery store, but we can totally substitute ricotta if we can't find it.
Yeah.
And I love this. This is a good little tip. If the edges of the dough end up being like higher up than the cheese layer, once we add the cheese, we'll just gently press down the edges because you want it to be level.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how yummy this sounds. So then we're going to bake until the cheese is melted but not brown, just kind of maybe a little bit molten and bubbly, about 15 minutes. And we won't actually be making the syrup while it's baking for 15 minutes because the syrup needs to cool, but I'm going to go through the instructions for that. So to make the orange blossom syrup, which we'll be pouring over at the end, in a saucepan, we're going to combine granulated sugar and water. We'll bring to a boil over high heat. Once it's boiling, we'll add some lemon juice, reduce the heat to low, simmer for 10 minutes, and then we'll add some orange blossom water. Is there a brand you love? And also, is that something you're buying in an Arab grocery store? I almost feel like you can maybe find it in regular grocery stores now, rose water, but maybe I'm wrong.
I do think you can find it at some grocery stores now. I think I've seen it at a few. From my experience, every time I've been into a Middle Eastern grocery store, it's there.
Yep.
No matter what. I feel like it's a staple for everybody. So yeah, I don't, there's not a specific brand to be completely frank. They all taste relatively the same. Yeah. As long as you have some orange blossom at your market, grab a hold of that and it will do the job.
Yep. Then we'll remove the pan from the heat. We'll let the syrup cool completely. So we don't want to put it on to the knafeh until it's room temperature, the syrup.
The syrup, yeah. The knafeh you want it to be nice and hot, and then the syrup.
The syrup should be room temp. If we wanted to like make this right before we began, can we put it in the fridge to like speed up the cooling down? Or do you just like to keep it on the counter until it comes to room temperature?
I usually just keep it on the counter.
Okay.
I feel like, especially if you start off by making it and then you completely, finish it, set it to the side, and then once you get started on the knafeh,
it'll be room temp. So now we're going to remove the knafeh from the oven. We'll immediately place a big platter, larger than the pan, over the top and quickly flip the knafeh onto the platter. So now the cheese is like the bottom of the dish, and then the top is all that yummy, crispy. Oh, so yum. And the pictures of it on your site and on your accounts are so beautiful. Oh, my God. Now we'll carefully lift the baking pan off of the knafeh. We'll use a table knife if needed to just kind of dislodge it from the pan and onto the platter. We'll drizzle as much of the orange blossom syrup on the top as we want. Like some people like it sweet, others less so. What do you like?
I must say, I love the drenched.
The drenched?
Yeah, I love the drenched. My mom, like growing up, my mom would drench it, and then she would also put extra on the side for anybody that would want it more. Yeah. I am afraid I'm one of those people.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Then we'll garnish with pistachios. Is that traditional or is that sort of your thing, the pistachios?
The pistachios are pretty traditional, I would say.
You can strewn them all over the surface or arrange them in a cute design of your choice around the perimeter. I feel like when you do it, maybe you do the perimeter.
Yeah, I like the perimeter.
I think it's so pretty.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then we'll cut into squares and immediately and serve warm. I assume like when you cut into it, it's a little bit melty.
The exciting part of knafeh always growing up was when my mom, like everybody would stand around her and you'd watch the cheese pull happen. So I recommend as warm as possible to serve it because you get that kind of fun time frame of all the guys come over and watch us like cut the knafeh. So it's a fun time and also fun to enjoy and eat.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Mariam. And I just want to say that you are my cherry pie.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Oh, so fun. That's it for today's show. Don't forget to follow She's My Cherry Pie on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And tell your pals about us. You can find today's recipe at cherrybomb.substack.com. She's My Cherry Pie is a production of the Cherry Bomb Podcast Network. Our producers are Carrie Diamond, Catherine Baker, and Jenna Sadu. Thank you so much for listening to She's My Cherry Pie, and happy baking!